What if I told you that knowing more than one language could literally rewire your brain, making it faster, sharper, and more resilient? What if being bilingual wasn't just about ordering tapas in Madrid or bargaining in a Moroccan souk, but a secret weapon against cognitive decline, a mental gym membership, and even a way to become a better multitasker? This isn't hype, it's science. And today we're unpacking the mind-blowing, literally, benefits of being bilingual. Let's start by breaking down what bilingualism actually does to the brain. When you speak more than one language, your brain isn't just remembering two sets of words. It's constantly doing behind-the-scenes management. Think of it like a control tower at an airport, guiding different linguistic planes, making sure they land safely, without crashing into each other. Neurologically, bilinguals have enhanced executive functions. These are the high-level brain skills, like attention control, task switching, and working memory. The bilingual brain has to constantly choose the right word in the right language and suppress the wrong one. That's cognitive control in action. Research using functional MRI scans shows bilingual brains light up in the prefrontal cortex, the same area responsible for decision-making and problem-solving. And guess what? It's more active, more developed, and more flexible. It's not just about language, it's about upgrading your mental OS. So does all this brain activity actually lead to something tangible? Yes, let's talk resilience, cognitive resilience to be exact. Studies show that bilingual individuals show symptoms of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia 4 to 5 years later than monolinguals. That's a massive neurological delay. Why? Because speaking two languages builds cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to improvise and find alternate ways of getting tasks done. Bilingualism builds more neural connections and more densely packed grey matter. Dr. Ellen Bialystok, a pioneering cognitive neuroscientist, found that bilingual seniors had the same cognitive performance levels as younger monolingual adults. That's not just impressive, it's revolutionary. So yes, being bilingual could actually slow down aging in your brain. All right, let's zoom out and look at kids for a second. There's a long-standing myth that bilingualism confuses young children or delays their speech. Nope, that's outdated science and it's just flat wrong. Children who grow up learning more than one language actually develop superior metalinguistic awareness. That means they're better at understanding how language works. They grasp abstract concepts earlier, like that a word is just a symbol for something else. And that same cognitive control we talked about earlier, it starts young. Bilingual kids are often better at focusing, ignoring distractions, and switching between tasks. They're also more empathetic. Being able to shift perspectives between languages helps them shift emotional perspectives too. In a globalized world, that's not just cool, that's essential. Let's go deeper. Language isn't just cognitive, it's cultural, it's emotional, it's spiritual. Being bilingual allows you to exist in two worlds at once. It's not just about vocabulary, it's about worldviews. Language shapes how you see reality. Some cultures have words for things others can't even describe, like the Filipino word gigil, the overwhelming urge to squeeze something cute, or the Danish concept of hygge, a feeling of cozy contentment. When you speak multiple languages, your identity becomes layered. You can switch not just words but emotional registers. That's more than code switching, it's soul switching. Research even shows bilinguals feel different emotions depending on which language they're speaking. One study found that people's heart rates changed when they swore in their native language versus a second one. Language hits differently depending on the emotional wiring, so the benefits go beyond brain scans, they touch the heart. Let's clear the air. There are a ton of myths floating around about bilingualism. Let's bust a few. Myth 1. Kids get confused. Nope, they might mix words at first, but that's a natural part of language development. It's called code mixing, and it actually shows their brain is working hard to sort things out. Myth 2. Adults can't learn new languages. Wrong again. Adult learners may have different challenges, but they also bring better focus and metacognitive skills. In fact, older bilingual learners show improved mental agility and even better emotional regulation. Myth 3, only fluency counts. False. Even being conversational in another language delivers cognitive benefits. You don't need a PhD in French to train your brain. Science doesn't lie. The benefits are real, measurable, and accessible. Let's get pragmatic for a sec. In the business world, bilingualism is not just a brain booster, it's a competitive advantage. Bilingual individuals tend to be better communicators. They're also more adaptable, able to navigate different cultural contexts and think outside the box. This leads to higher emotional intelligence, an asset in leadership, negotiation, and marketing. And here's something artists and creators will love. Bilingualism boosts creativity. Switching between languages activates divergent thinking, the ability to generate multiple solutions to a problem. That's pure creative gold. In fact, many bilinguals report that they write poetry in one language, dream in another, and innovate in a mix of both. Now, you might be wondering, I only speak one language. Is it too late for me? Absolutely not. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, doesn't stop at a certain age. It might take more effort, but the payoff is massive. Here's how to begin. 1. Start with immersion. Watch shows, listen to music, follow creators in your target language. 2. Daily practice. Even 10 minutes a day is powerful. 3. Speak out loud. Reading is great, but speaking cements the learning. 4. Use apps like Duolingo or Babbel. Make it fun and gamified. 5. Find a language partner. Real conversations are where magic happens. Remember, progress, imperfection. Every word you learn is another neuron fired, another mental bridge built. Let's bring it home. We live in a rapidly globalizing, interconnected, multicultural world. Bilingualism isn't just a skill anymore. It's a superpower. It sharpens your mind, slows cognitive decline, builds empathy, deepens identity, and fuels creativity. Your brain wasn't built to stay monolingual. It was built to evolve, adapt, and connect. So go ahead, learn that second language, or third, or fifth, because every word you learn in a new tongue isn't just a linguistic victory. It's an act of brain transformation. What languages viewers are learning or want to learn? You've heard that being bilingual can make your brain faster, more resilient, and sharper. But let's get real, there's more, much more. What if I told you that speaking multiple languages not only reshapes your brain, but also your worldview, your economic destiny, and even your moral compass? This is part 2 of our journey into bilingualism, and trust me, we're just getting started. Let's talk moral reasoning. Yup, your language might influence your ethics. Studies by Dr. Albert Costa found that bilinguals often make more utilitarian choices when faced with ethical dilemmas in their second language. Why? The emotional distance a second language creates allows for more rational and sometimes colder decision-making. Imagine this. You're given a moral problem in your native tongue. Your emotional brain lights up. But in your second language, it's your logical brain that takes the wheel. That's powerful. It means bilinguals might actually think differently depending on which language they're using, and that could have profound implications for diplomacy, law, and international relations. Here's where things get weird. In the best way. Different languages shape how we remember the past and imagine the future. For example, English speakers tend to view time as a straight line, past behind, future ahead, but Mandarin speakers often perceive time vertically, yup, up and down. This isn't metaphor, it's neurological. The way your brain encodes time shifts depending on language. Bilinguals often develop dual timelines in their mind, able to switch how they visualize events, making them more adaptable in memory-based reasoning. Oh, and let's not forget autobiographical memory. Bilinguals often recall certain life events more vividly, depending on the language they were speaking at the time. It's like having parallel memory tracks. Fascinating, right? Let's talk feelings, deep ones. Speaking in a second language can actually reduce emotional intensity. That's why some bilinguals find it easier to talk about trauma or sensitive issues in their non-native tongue. In therapy, bilingual clients often switch languages mid-session. Why? Because some words feel safer, others cut too deep. Language offers not just a way to express emotion, but also to regulate it. That's huge in mental health. Bilingualism becomes a toolkit, not just for communication, but for healing. And in terms of mental resilience, bilinguals often develop higher emotional intelligence. They're used to navigating emotional subtext across cultures, tones, and expressions. Let's talk cash. Numbers, bottom lines. Bilingual employees often earn more, up to 20% more in some industries. Why? Because they bring more to the table: global perspective, communication skills, and cultural fluency. In today's digital economy, being multilingual gives you access to more markets, more clients, and more content. You're not just bilingual, you're bicultural. And in business, that's influence. Entrepreneurs who speak multiple languages are more likely to scale internationally. Influencers? They reach wider audiences. Startups? They understand diverse customer bases. Bilingualism isn't just brain power, it's market power. Here's something beautiful. Bilingual artists often express themselves differently depending on the language. Poets write more abstractly in their second tongue. Musicians hear rhythm differently. Filmmakers frame scenes based on the cultural logic of the language in the script. Language isn't just a tool, it's a medium. And bilinguals, they're artists painting with more colors. Creativity thrives on perspective. And language is the lens that changes everything. Here's an area researchers are just beginning to explore: how bilingualism intersects with neurodivergence. Preliminary studies show that bilingual children with ADHD, autism, or dyslexia may develop stronger coping strategies. Why? Because learning two systems of communication trains mental flexibility and pattern recognition. It's not a cure, but it's a support system, a scaffold that helps neurodivergent learners navigate complex tasks with more ease. There's growing interest in using bilingual environments as therapeutic tools in special education. The future is inclusive and multilingual. Let's take a moment to look at the darker side. Languages are dying at an alarming. Let's get futuristic. AI translation tools like ChatGPT, Google Translate, and Whisper are making communication faster, but they're not replacing human multilingualism. Why? Because language isn't just data, it's nuance, tone, context, intuition. Brain-computer interfaces may one day allow direct neural translation, but for now, the act of learning a language is still unmatched in cognitive benefit. In fact, combining tech with traditional language learning through AR/VR, gamification, or neurofeedback could be the next frontier of super learning. In the future, multilinguals won't just be impressive, they'll be necessary. Let's step back and zoom out. Being bilingual is no longer just a personal advantage, it's a social evolution. In a world divided by misunderstanding, multilingual minds are the bridges. They're not just decoding languages, they're decoding humanity. So if you're on this journey, keep going. Every new word you learn is a neuron sparked, a worldview opened, a future built. We've explored how bilingualism boosts your brain power and unlocks new dimensions of thought. But let's raise the stakes. Because now we're stepping into the world outside your skull, where language isn't just a tool, it's a force. A force that can rewrite your family legacy, rewire your future, and even reframe the fight for justice. This is part 3 of our journey into bilingualism, and if you thought we were done, buckle up. We're going global, ethical, generational, and digital. Let's pivot to the home, where bilingualism often starts. Raising bilingual kids isn't just trendy, it's transformative. Studies show that children who grow up with 2 languages develop greater cognitive control and empathy. Why? because they learn to understand different perspectives early on. But bilingual parenting isn't just about switching between languages. It's about fostering identity, culture, and connection. Whether it's heritage preservation or preparing your child for a global world, it's an investment in resilience. And the earlier you start, the better. Critical windows for language acquisition mean children can become native-like speakers in both tongues, with benefits that ripple across their lives. Language is political, always has been. Bilingualism brings power, but also raises questions about privilege and access. Who gets to be multilingual? Who's forced to assimilate? In many societies, bilingualism is seen as elite in some circles and stigmatized in others. It depends on which languages you speak. Spanish English in the US could face bias. French English in Canada, often praised. Language is tied to power. To be bilingual in the right context means access. To be bilingual in the wrong context can mean discrimination. We need to challenge those biases, normalize multilingualism in schools, workplaces, politics. Language equity is justice. We touched on dementia resistance before, but let's go further. Bilingual seniors show delayed onset of Alzheimer's by up to 5 years. That's not a fluke. It's the brain's resistance, forged through decades of switching, adapting, translating. Even in late life, bilingualism builds cognitive reserve. It helps with memory retention, mental flexibility, and emotional regulation. And beyond science, there's dignity. Being able to connect with loved ones in your native or second language well into your 80s preserves identity and humanity. Aging doesn't have to mean fading. With bilingualism, it can mean thriving. What if being bilingual made you better at solving conflict? Studies suggest bilinguals show stronger conflict monitoring skills, not just in the brain, but in real life. That means they're more attuned to subtle cues, better at perspective taking, and more open to compromise. Think about it. When you're used to navigating between different cultures and codes, you become a natural translator, not just of words, but of emotions and tensions. In politics, business, relationships, bilinguals often play the role of the bridge, the mediator, the peacemaker. Language is connection, and connection is the first step toward peace. Let's go existential. Do bilinguals have two identities? Sometimes, yeah. Psychologists find that people act differently depending on which language they're speaking. More assertive in English, more formal in Japanese, more poetic in Spanish. This isn't fragmentation, it's expansion. Bilinguals are shapeshifters, code switchers, culture blenders. Identity becomes fluid, flexible, adaptive. And in a world that demands agility, that's not just a skill, it's a superpower. Did you know some indigenous languages have dozens of words for snow or rivers or forest spirits? Language encodes how we see nature. When languages die, we lose ways of understanding the earth. Ecological knowledge disappears with them. Bilingual speakers of local and global languages are the last protectors of this wisdom. They're the bridge between ancient tradition and modern science. Want to protect the planet? Support language preservation. Ecology and linguistics are more connected than we think. Now, let's talk tech. In the age of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, language isn't just spoken, it's performed. And digital bilinguals are fluent in more than just tongues. They switch platforms, tones, dialects. A Gen Zer might text in English, vlog in Spanish, meme in Arabic. Their digital fluency is part of their identity. Being bilingual today means being globally expressive. And with AI tools like live captions and multilingual content curation, the lines are blurring between languages and audiences. Your voice isn't bound by geography anymore. It's borderless. Here's the thing, bilingualism is no longer optional, not in a global economy, not in a digitally connected, culturally colliding, constantly evolving world. Whether you're learning for heritage, career, empathy, or just love, it matters. Your brain thanks you. Your future thanks you. And humanity, it definitely thanks you. But this isn't just about mastering languages. It's about becoming a better thinker, a global citizen, a bridge builder. So keep learning, keep growing. The multilingual mind, it's not just an upgrade, it's the next evolution. We've traveled through the mind, the heart, and society itself. But now we turn our eyes forward, into the future, where language isn't just memory or culture, it's innovation, it's survival. This is part 4 of our exploration into bilingualism, and we're about to explore what it means to be multilingual in a world redefined by space travel, artificial intelligence, climate change, and shifting human identity. What happens to language when we leave Earth? As humanity pushes toward Mars and beyond, multilingualism will become crucial. On international missions, astronauts already communicate across multiple languages, but in future colonies will new hybrid tongues emerge, Creole languages of the stars. Imagine a Martian pidgin formed from Russian, English, Mandarin, and Swahili, language not just as identity, but as shared survival. Even NASA trains astronauts in multiple languages, emphasizing communication across cultures and crisis response. In space, miscommunication could be fatal. Multilingualism becomes mission critical. We're not far from neural implants. Elon Musk's Neuralink isn't sci-fi anymore. Imagine uploading fluency in Mandarin straight into your cortex. Could technology make traditional language learning obsolete? Maybe, but fluency isn't just vocab and grammar, it's emotion, context, nuance. Downloading a language doesn't download culture, or empathy, or history. True bilingualism isn't just mental, it's lived. Still, we must ask, when AI merges with our brains, will we become polyglot cyborgs? And if so, will that bring us closer to one another, or just further blur identity? AI translators are improving by the day. Tools like Whisper, ChatGPT, and Google Translate are already reshaping communication. But here's the twist. AI learns from us, from your bilingual tweets, code-switching texts, and multilingual captions. Every time you speak, you're training the machines. We're entering a co-evolution era, humans teaching machines, machines guiding humans. It's not about replacing language learning, it's about partnering with AI to become even better communicators. And that means bilingualism isn't dying, it's being reborn digitally. Right now, thousands of languages are endangered. One vanishes every 2 weeks. But there's hope. Tech is being used to revive them. Linguists are creating VR immersion experiences in nearly lost indigenous tongues. AI voice models are reconstructing extinct phonetics. TikTokers are teaching dying dialects through trends and memes. Being bilingual might one day mean speaking your heritage tongue and a language from the brink of extinction, preserving culture in 4K resolution. Language isn't just memory, it's rebellion, it's resurrection. In international diplomacy, translation is power. The UN, EU, and other global institutions operate in multiple official languages, but what happens when nuance gets lost? Mistranslations have triggered real-world crises, as climate change, pandemics, and migration force nations into deeper collaboration. Multilingual diplomacy will define peace or chaos. The future peacemakers will be polyglots. Let's get soft. Language doesn't just shape thought, it shapes love. Studies show bilinguals often experience romance differently depending on the language used. Some say I love you feels deeper in their second tongue, others code switch during conflict or affection. In multicultural relationships, language becomes a shared dance, a mutual learning. Future couples may fall in love in 3 languages, maybe even 4. Love, like language, is fluid. Did you know your prayers change depending on your language? Spiritual experience often deepens when expressed in one's mother tongue. But some report feeling more liberated, more transcendent, in a second or third language. From Buddhist chants to Quranic recitations to Christian hymns, language carries not just faith but frequency. Meaning shifts, awareness expands. Bilingual spirituality is already reshaping how we experience consciousness, ritual, and community, and in a hyper-connected world, it's only growing. Ecologists now partner with linguists to preserve both language and biodiversity. Why? Because indigenous languages contain hyper-local environmental knowledge, medicinal plants, seasonal rhythms, animal behavior. When the language dies, that science dies too. Bilingual speakers in native and global languages are Earth's best translators, between the wisdom of the land and the tools of the future. To fight climate change, we need more than carbon policies. We need words. All of them. Language isn't dying, it's evolving. And bilingualism, it's not just a benefit anymore, it's a requirement for the world we're heading into. In this part of our journey, we've seen how bilingualism can colonize space and protect culture, bridge AI and humanity, rebuild what was lost, and imagine what's next. So where do we go from here? Wherever we want, in any language. Every tongue tells a story, but when those stories converge, a revolution happens. Welcome to part 5 of our bilingualism journey. This time, we're diving into how speaking multiple languages transforms not just minds, but movements, economies, education systems, and cultural identities. This is where language meets power. In global movements, from Black Lives Matter to climate justice to feminist uprisings, language has been the bridge and the battlefield. Being bilingual means you can translate anger, hope, and solidarity in real time. You amplify voices, you cross borders, digitally and physically. Multilingual activists are shaping hashtags, chants, and manifestos that spread across continents. They're challenging colonial languages and reclaiming native ones. This isn't just protest, it's linguistic justice. A movement spoken in one language may whisper. A movement spoken in 10, it roars. During pandemics, wars, and natural disasters, bilinguals become first responders, not just physically but linguistically. Translating critical info saves lives, whether it's evacuation alerts, vaccine instructions, or peace negotiations. Bilingualism becomes a life-saving skill. In refugee camps, interpreters often become mediators between trauma and healing. In hospitals, bilingual staff bridge gaps of trust and culture. Bilingualism isn't a privilege here. It's essential infrastructure. Let's talk money. Studies show bilingual employees earn 5 to 20% more than monolingual peers. Why? Because language opens markets, it unlocks diplomacy, negotiations, and customer trust. In the global job economy, bilingualism is the ultimate soft skill. And as automation threatens basic labor, communication, cultural fluency, and adaptability, traits common among bilinguals, remain irreplaceable. Language pays, literally. Traditional schools, outdated. The future of education is multilingual, multicultural, and multimodal. Across the world, bilingual and immersion programs are showing stronger cognitive results, better empathy levels, and higher global awareness. But it's not just about adding a language, it's about how we teach. Storytelling across languages, project-based learning in real-world bilingual contexts, peer teaching between students of different native tongues. Imagine math in French, history in Swahili, science in Mandarin. The multilingual classroom doesn't divide, it multiplies. To grow up bilingual is to grow up layered. Many young people feel split between 2 or more cultural worlds, but they're not torn, they're hybrid. Being bilingual reshapes identity formation, belonging, and even self-esteem. It's a superpower, but also comes with pressures, accent bias, cultural shame, code switch fatigue. The new wave of creators, writers, and leaders are reclaiming their mixed lingual experiences as identity, not confusion. To be bilingual is to be plural and powerful. From K-pop to reggaeton to anime dubs, the future of entertainment is multilingual. Streaming services now offer subtitles and dubs in dozens of languages, making global media accessible but also reshaping how we experience story and sound. Artists who blend languages in music and poetry often reach wider audiences, tapping into emotional codes that monolingual content can't. Think of Bad Bunny, BTS, or multilingual YouTubers who switch mid-sentence. They don't translate, they transcend. In offices, bilinguals often navigate multiple personas. They might pitch in English, joke in Spanish, and negotiate in Arabic, all before lunch. But code switching can also be draining. Bilinguals are expected to be on in every language, often without credit, compensation, or understanding. Companies are slowly waking up to this. Smart ones train leaders in linguistic inclusion, not just DEI. Because language equity isn't just nice, it's productive. Can you be autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD and still thrive bilingually? Absolutely. In fact, some research suggests bilingual environments can sharpen certain cognitive functions for neurodiverse individuals, improving mental flexibility and creative problem solving. Others point out that being bilingual helps navigate different social norms and cues, something incredibly valuable in neurodiverse contexts. We're moving away from one-size-fits-all brains, and bilingualism is part of that shift. Language is inheritance, but also responsibility. What do we pass down? What stories, rhythms, and idioms? What do we lose when a language goes silent? Parents, teachers, elders, your bilingualism is more than practical, it's ancestral. Every conversation is a thread in the human story. Future generations might speak AI dialects, virtual accents, or multilingual code. But the roots will always matter. Pass them on. This part of the journey has shown us that bilingualism isn't just an individual skill, it's a societal shift, a movement, a mandate. It's how we build better schools, solve global problems, protect the past and invent the future, heal, create and connect. You don't just speak a language, you carry one, list in language's legacy, live it loudly. We've explored the mind. We've navigated identity. We've charted the rise of language in protest, classrooms and culture. But in Part 6, we're heading beyond the brain. This is about bilingualism as a force to shape technology, rebuild trauma, redesign society, and heal the soul. Let's face it, the future speaks in code, and bilingualism isn't just about humans anymore, it's embedded in machines. From Google Translate to ChatGPT to real-time interpreting earbuds, language AI is trained on multilingual minds. And the more complex the model, the more it mirrors our code-switching brains. But here's the catch. These tools work best when they're designed by people who actually think in more than one tongue. Multilingual developers, linguists, and cultural consultants are building the ethical foundation for AI that doesn't just translate, but understands. Bilingualism is the blueprint. AI is the architecture. Language is memory, and memory is where trauma lives. In therapy, people often unlock their deepest pain not in their first language, but their emotional language. That could be their mother tongue or the one tied to a pivotal life event. Psychologists now use bilingualism as a tool, switching languages to regulate emotional intensity, code mixing for identity reconciliation, culturally informed vocab for grief and resilience. Bilingual therapy isn't niche, it's necessary, because language isn't just how we hurt, it's how we heal. The Earth is multilingual, from the Sami in the Arctic to the Quechua of the Andes. Indigenous communities have preserved climate knowledge in language. Literally. Terms for weather patterns, farming practices, and ecological relationships are embedded in these tongues, many of which are endangered. Saving these languages is not just cultural work, it's climate strategy. Bilingual activists, translators, and scientists are teaming up to protect languages and the planet. To speak the land, you must speak its language. In virtual worlds, the laws of physics may change, but language still governs experience. As VR platforms and metaverses expand, multilingual environments are becoming the norm. Players, creators, and developers toggle between languages fluidly, designing spaces that are truly global. Imagine an immersive game where NPCs switch based on your language preferences. or a VR classroom where students learn in sign language, Urdu, or Creole. In these spaces, bilingualism isn't a translation feature. It's the fabric of connection. Nav is universal, but the way we say it, wildly diverse. Bilingual couples navigate cultural quirks, translate idioms, and sometimes even create a shared third language. Research shows these couples develop stronger communication skills and higher emotional intelligence. Why? Because they're constantly negotiating meaning. And let's be real, nothing says commitment like learning your partner's language. In a multilingual world, love doesn't get lost in translation, it thrives there. Every faith speaks in rhythm, repetition, reverence, whether it's Arabic in Islam, Sanskrit in Hinduism, Hebrew in Judaism, or Latin in Catholicism. Language is sacred, but what happens when bilingual people worship in their non-native tongue or switch mid-prayer? Some say the soul listens in any language, others feel something missing when sacred words shift. Bilingual spirituality is rich and sometimes complicated, but always alive because the divine doesn't mind your accent. As we age, the brain slows, but for bilinguals, it slows later. Research has shown that lifelong bilinguals can delay dementia symptoms by up to 4 to 5 years. Why? Because managing 2 or more languages creates a kind of mental cross-training. It's not just memory, it's attention, flexibility, and problem-solving. Senior centers around the world are now implementing bilingual programs, not just for education, but neurological health. To live long and sharp, speak more. Behind every global brand is a linguistic strategist. Coca-Cola in China, Apple in Brazil. They didn't just translate, they localized. Bilingual marketing is about nuance, but humor that lands across cultures. Are idioms that carry emotion. A tone that respects local norms. Brands that fail here flop spectacularly. Remember the Chevy Nova? It means won't go in Spanish. Bilingual professionals aren't just translators, they're bridge builders, revenue whisperers, culture coders. For refugees, language is the first wall and the first door. Learning the dominant language of a new country can be a survival tool, but keeping one's native tongue is just as vital for identity, for dignity. Bilingual education in refugee camps has been shown to boost mental health, academic outcomes, and integration success. It's not about assimilation, it's about belonging without erasure. Bilingualism is a right, not a privilege. Here's the wild part. What if we started designing our cities, apps, schools, and relationships with multilingualism at the center? Imagine signage in 3 languages as the default. AI that interprets tone, not just vocabulary. Kids growing up with emotional vocab across cultures. Justice systems where linguistic equity is the baseline. Language doesn't just reflect society, it builds it. The future won't just be smarter, it'll be louder, richer, and multilingual by design. We often think language learning starts with the first word, but what if it starts long before that, before crawling, crying, or even breathing on your own? Part 7 is about the earliest echoes, when language isn't spoken, but absorbed. It's the science of how bilingualism begins in the womb, how it shapes us as newborns, and how it may be the key to unlocking emotional intelligence, empathy, and a lifelong superpower. At just 18 weeks in the womb, the auditory system starts developing. By 25 weeks, fetuses respond to external sounds, especially the mother's voice. But what's more fascinating, they recognize the rhythm and melody of her speech. Studies show fetuses can distinguish between different languages based on intonation. Newborns prefer the language they heard in utero. Babies exposed to multiple languages in the womb show stronger neural flexibility. Language is literally their first lullaby, and bilingualism, it begins in the belly. It's not magic, it's neurology. Prenatal exposure to 2 or more languages activates the brain's auditory and memory circuits early. MRI scans of newborns show more robust activity in babies whose mothers spoke more than one language during pregnancy. This does a few things. Sets up stronger phonetic recognition, builds dual sound maps in the brain, enhances attention control and executive function. Basically, your brain gets primed for complexity before you even open your eyes. Ever noticed how French babies cry with a rising melody and German babies with a falling one? It's not coincidence, it's linguistic melody learned in the womb. Research from the University of Würzburg showed that newborns cry in ways that reflect their mother's language, suggesting they've already internalized speech patterns before birth. So, bilingual babies? They may already carry dual rhythm patterns when they cry. Even in discomfort, language is alive. Baby talk isn't silly, it's strategic. Called infant-directed speech, it uses higher pitch, exaggerated tones, and slow pronunciation. Bilingual baby talk doubles the effect. Infants exposed to multiple languages show greater face recognition ability. They develop longer attention spans. They show early signs of switching between rules and systems. Talking to your baby in both languages, even if they don't respond, builds neurological trust. You're not just talking, you're wiring. Empathy doesn't start in school, it starts in the nursery. Bilingual babies are exposed to emotional expression across linguistic lines. 2 sets of words for comfort, frustration, joy, multiple emotional tones and gestures, more flexibility in reading faces and moods. One Harvard study found bilingual toddlers to be more attuned to nonverbal emotional cues than monolingual peers. Language isn't just mental, it's emotional. And bilingual babies, they learn to feel in surround sound. The bilingual baby brain is a construction site. Synaptic pathways fire across regions faster. Memory centers and language centers interlink more deeply. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, activates earlier. This doesn't make them smarter per se, but it builds a neuroflexible brain, one that adapts, interprets, and bounces back faster. They're not just learning 2 languages, they're learning to learn. Here's something poetic. Newborns raised in bilingual homes cry differently, depending on who's holding them. They begin to modulate tone, shift gaze, and adjust reactions based on linguistic context. One moment they're calmed by soft Mandarin, the next giggling to Spanish rhyme. It's as if they learn the emotional bandwidth of each language and choose the one they need. This isn't just linguistic ability, it's relational intelligence. Let's clear the air. Myth. Bilingual babies get confused. False. They differentiate languages early. Myth. They speak later. Partially true. Some do, but the delay is short and the payoff long-term. Myth. You need to be fluent to raise them bilingual. False. Exposure matters more than perfection. Consistency, connection, and community matter most. You don't need perfect grammar, just presence. Lullabies are the first lessons. Music activates both the left and right hemispheres of the brain, combining rhythm, memory, and emotion, when sung in 2 languages. Babies show faster word segmentation skills. They retain melodic structures longer. They develop phonetic comfort with new sounds. Sing to them in your native language, in your partner's language, in your heart's language. Each note plants a seed. When you raise a bilingual baby, you're not just shaping a child, you're building a family story that crosses borders, generations, and beliefs. You create bridges to grandparents who speak another language, portals to heritage and history, a mindset that says more is possible. Language becomes the gift that keeps speaking, through lullabies, through questions, through whispered dreams.
In the previous part, we explored something profound, how language doesn't begin with first words. It starts far earlier, in the dark, fluid world of the womb. Before we breathe air, we are bathed in rhythm. In cadence. In voice. A mother's hum, a father's murmur, the pulse of life is linguistic. We don't speak yet, but we feel language. We absorb it like light through skin. Language is not learned, it is inherited, like a lullaby wrapped in amniotic fluid. But today? We take it one step deeper. Welcome to Part 8. We're shifting from cognition to connection. From grammar rules to gut feelings, from the brain to the heart. This is where bilingualism stops being academic and becomes intimate. Bilingualism isn't just a tool. It's not some life hack for a globalized world or a cute bullet point on your LinkedIn. It's not just a way to get jobs, decode menus, or travel smarter. No, bilingualism is something far more human. Something tender. Something sacred. It's about belonging. And longing. And learning how to live in more than one skin at once. So let me ask you this, what does it mean to love in two languages? Maybe in one, I love you feels soft, like velvet. You grew up hearing it in whispered tones, maybe from a mother or a grandmother, someone who gave it weight, made it sacred. Maybe in the other language, it's louder, bolder, like a shout from a rooftop. The syllables are sharper, the energy more electric. Both real. Both valid. Both you. To be bilingual is to know that some feelings don't fit cleanly in just one tongue. Some words, saudade in Portuguese, sensect in German, mamalapana de pai in the Yagan language of Tierra del Fuego, they just don't translate. Not fully. Not cleanly. And that's okay. Because you don't translate cleanly either. What about grief? To grieve in one language and heal in another is one of the most human things you can do. Maybe you mourn in the language of your ancestors, the one you used to say goodbye to your grandmother. And maybe you find your way back to joy in the language of your chosen family, your new city, your new chapter. Language becomes ritual. It becomes rebirth. Bilingualism means you can carry two ways of seeing the world. Two ways of naming pain. Two ways of dreaming. It means you can cry in Spanish and recover in English. It means you can pray in Arabic and protest in French. It means you can kiss in Kiswahili and write poetry in Korean. It means your soul is multilingual. Here's something wild. Neurologists have shown that bilingual brains process emotions differently depending on the language being spoken. Isn't that poetic? Your emotional experience shifts depending on which language you're using. It's like your heart has different rooms, and each tongue has the key to a different one. In many ways, bilingualism is emotional DNA. Not the double helix of biology, but the inner double helix of identity. Who you are is twisted and braided out of the languages you live in. You think differently. You feel differently. You are different depending on which language you're in. And you know what? That's not fragmentation. That's integration. You're not split. You're expanded. You're not confused. You're complex. You don't belong to one place, you belong to many. You're a bridge. You're a mosaic of sounds and songs and syntax. And that's not just beautiful, it's revolutionary. Because in a world that constantly tries to box us in, flatten us out, or force us to choose, bilingualism is an act of resistance. It says, I will not reduce myself. I am more than one thing. I contain multitudes. So here's the truth, bilingualism isn't just about fluency. It's about fluidity. The ability to move between identities, between cultures, between emotional frequencies. You don't just speak in two tongues, you live in two realities. You carry your history in one pocket, your future in another. You dream in Technicolor. You code switch, not just for survival, but for expression, for power, for poetry. And if you've ever felt like you didn't quite belong in either language, that you weren't native enough, that your accent was too thick, your vocabulary too thin, let me remind you, you belong everywhere your voice can echo. Your bilingualism is not a flaw. It is not a crack. It is the golden seam that holds your story together. This is not just about linguistics. This is about liberation. So let's stop thinking of bilingualism as just a skill. Let's start seeing it for what it really is, a heart that beats in two rhythms. A soul that sings in harmony. A mind that dances between worlds. You are not in between. You are beyond. Welcome to the heart of bilingualism. Welcome to the beauty of belonging in more than one place at once. Bilinguals often say they feel like different versions of themselves depending on the language they speak. This isn't identity confusion, it's identity expansion. Language activates specific memories, emotions, and social contexts. Code switching is more than swapping words, it's shifting modes of self. Cultural frames embedded in language influence behavior, tone, and posture. You're not being fake. You're being fluid. Your bilingual self isn't divided. It's layered. Language is how we pass down more than words, it's how we pass down values, jokes, stories, rules, roles. Grandparents who speak one language become keepers of wisdom. Parents translate not just vocabulary, but culture. Children become bridges, sometimes interpreters, always legacy holders. One bilingual child can preserve an entire lineage. When we teach kids 2 languages, we teach them to remember. Teenage years are identity puzzles. For bilingual teens, each language offers a different piece. School in one language, family in another. Friends who speak neither. Culture clash and cultural creativity. Bilingual adolescents often develop higher empathy, stronger narrative flexibility, resilience in ambiguity. They grow up knowing that identity isn't singular, it's symphonic. Ever cried over a song you don't fully understand? Language roots memory in emotional landscapes. When we hear our childhood language, even after years of silence, old feelings return. Familiar warmth floods back. Forgotten joy reawakens. Emotional memory is encoded linguistically. That's why bilinguals feel nostalgia in 2 languages. Sometimes for people. Sometimes for who they were in that language. Being bilingual isn't just personal, it's political. It enables diplomacy. It nurtures cross-cultural empathy. It helps mediate conflict. The more languages you speak, the fewer others exist in the world. Bilinguals often serve as cultural connectors, translating not just words, but meaning, intent, and care. In a fractured world, bilingualism becomes an act of unity. At the core of it all, bilingualism is a love story. Not a simple one. Not one of straight lines or neat endings. No, this is a layered, looping, living story. A story that pulses across bloodlines and borders. A story that doesn't end, it echoes. It's a love story between generations. Think about it. Every time you speak the language of your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-great anyone, you're not just pronouncing words. You're summoning memory. You're conjuring presence. You're saying, you're still here, with me, in me. Maybe you never met them, maybe you only know them through old letters or a worn family photo in a plastic frame. But when you speak the words they once whispered into soil, into songs, into lullabies, you keep them alive. Your voice becomes a vessel. Their stories ride your breath. That's what bilingualism is. It's not just fluency in 2 tongues. It's fluency in 2 lifetimes. 2 bloodlines. 2 dreams that dared to survive. It's a love story between cultures. Maybe you dance bachata in the kitchen and listen to Afrobeats in your car. Maybe you switch from English to French to Wolof all in one conversation, like your mouth is a jazz band and your heart is the conductor. Maybe you make pasta while humming Bollywood songs. Maybe you wear sneakers with your sari. Or eat jollof with chopsticks. And that? That is culture. That is connection. That is you. To speak 2 languages is to walk through the world with 2 passports in your soul, to show up in a room and feel every accent, every gesture, every silence differently. To code switch with grace, because you know the power of knowing when to speak and when to listen. To blend, not to disappear, but to expand. To multiply. And that? That's love. Not the cute, clean, curated kind. But the deep, real, resilient kind. It's also a soul inheritance. A gift passed down in whispers and winks. In family dinners and folk songs. In bedtime stories and side-eyes and slang. In things said and things unsaid. Even if you didn't grow up bilingual, maybe you're reclaiming a lost tongue. Learning the language your parents didn't teach you. Rebuilding the bridge brick by aching brick. That's not failure. That's faith. That's saying, I still believe this is mine. I still believe I belong. So please, whisper. Write. Sing. Cry, love. In every tongue you hold dear. Whether it's fluent or fractured. Whether it rolls off the tongue or catches in your throat. Whether it's public or private or just yours to keep. Reclaiming a forgotten language is like watering roots you didn't know were still alive. It hurts sometimes. It heals too. It reminds you, you come from something bigger. You are something bigger. Even when you fumble the words. Even when your accent makes you pause. Even when your vocabulary runs out mid-sentence. You are still part of the story. So speak anyway. Whisper. Write. Sing. Cry. Love. In every tongue you hold dear. Whether it's fluent or fragmented. Whether you learned it from a parent or from a pain. Whether it came to you in lullabies or in language apps. Use it. Honor it, live inside it. Because in those syllables, you are building something timeless. Something that does not expire or evaporate. Reclaiming a forgotten language is like watering roots you didn't know were still alive. It hurts sometimes. It heals too. It reminds you, you come from something bigger. You are something bigger. Even when you fumble the words. Even when your accent makes you pause. Even when your vocabulary runs out mid-sentence. You are still part of the story. So speak anyway. Whisper. Write. Sing. Cry. Love. In every tongue you hold dear. Whether it's fluent or fragmented. Whether you learned it from a parent or from a pain. Whether it came to you in lullabies or in language apps. Use it. Honor it, live inside it. Because in those syllables, you are building something timeless. Something that does not expire or evaporate. And maybe, just maybe, you are what the world needs more of. People who can sit in two truths. Speak in two styles. Love in two languages. Because let's be honest, this world needs more bridges, not borders. More connection, not correction. More empathy, not erasure. And bilingualism? It teaches that. It teaches you to listen deeply, to speak gently, to move through the world not just as a tourist of sound, but as a translator of soul. And here, at the end. After all the stories, the science, the spirit, after all the womb echoes and heartbeats and heritage, I want to leave you with this: bilingualism is not just a thing you do. It's a way you are. And maybe, just maybe, you are what the world needs more of. People who can sit in two truths. Speak in two styles. Love in two languages. Because let's be honest, it's the way your voice shifts. When you tell a joke in one language and apologize in another. It's the way your eyes soften. When a word lands just right, in just the right language. It's the music of your mother tongue, and the future you're forging. Every time you choose to speak. With all of yourself. So if no one's told you this yet, let me thank you for taking this journey. All the parts, all the pieces, all the voices, now woven into one. From the womb to the word, from silence to sound, from question to connection. You've heard it all. Now let it live in you. Let it shape your speech. Let it guide your gaze. Let it remind you, always, you are bilingual. You are beloved. And you belong. Alright, we've just unpacked 8 deep, soulful, science-backed parts of the bilingual journey. From prenatal soundscapes to emotional healing and cultural identity, we've explored how language lives not just in the brain, but in the heart, memory, and soul. Now it's your turn. Let's open the floor. Here's a special 10-minute Q&A based on your real questions, and the ones we all need to start asking. Absolutely not. Neuroplasticity doesn't vanish when you turn 18. Sure, kids learn languages faster, but adults bring strategy, context, and motivation. In fact, second language learning in adulthood has been shown to delay cognitive decline and boost emotional intelligence. So if you're wondering if it's too late, it's not. Start now. Your future self will thank you. There's no universal right answer, it's about connection and context. Start with the language that connects your child to family, roots, or daily life. Then, layer in others that open up the world. Children are capable of juggling multiple languages as long as they're surrounded with consistency, emotion, and engagement. Remember, you're not just teaching words, you're teaching worlds. Here's the magic: the language you use often ties to specific emotional memories and social roles. If you grew up being nurtured in one language and educated in another, those emotional pathways get embedded in how you feel and express. That's why someone might argue in English but cry in Spanish. It's not confusion, it's neurological precision. It's like having emotional volume knobs for each language. Yes, massively. Studies show that bilinguals are better at divergent thinking, pattern recognition, and problem solving. Juggling two languages exercises your brain's executive control, which helps you think outside the box and between worlds. Creativity often blooms in spaces of contrast and complexity. Bilingualism creates exactly that. Yes. By the third trimester, babies can distinguish between rhythms and patterns of language. Incredibly, newborns cry in the melody of their mother's tongue, German babies have sharper cries, French babies more melodic. Language learning doesn't start with flashcards, it starts with heartbeat, breath, and voice. Language loss, especially for immigrants, is emotional. When you stop using a language, your brain may file it deeper, but it's rarely erased. With effort and exposure, much of it can come back. And emotionally? Relearning a forgotten language often feels like reclaiming a lost version of yourself. It's healing. It's homecoming. Yes. It gives you more tools to process and express complex feelings. Some people use their second language to talk about trauma with less emotional overwhelm. Others find comfort in their first language when healing. Even just being able to switch can give you more control over your emotional environment. Language isn't just communication, it's regulation. Truth? There can be challenges. Code switching fatigue. Feeling like you're not enough in either language. Misunderstandings between cultures. But these are growth edges, not roadblocks. Bilingualism is complex. But complexity breeds depth. And what you gain, empathy, insight, adaptability, far outweighs the cost. An accent is not a flaw, it's a record of your journey. It says, I'm a bridge. Don't let anyone shame you for the way your voice lands. That rhythm, that melody? It holds layers of memory, meaning, and resilience. Accent is not equal to ignorance. Accent equals story. Be intentional. Read in both. Listen to music. Watch films. Speak with relatives. Switch your phone settings. Journal in different tongues. Languages are living things, they need daily oxygen. Keep them in motion, in meaning, in music. Whether you speak 2 languages, 5, or are just beginning your journey, know this: every language you learn adds another rhythm to your heart. Another lens to your soul. Another bridge between you and the world. Keep speaking. Keep learning. Keep loving, in every tongue that calls to you.